with Access eForms. We are an electronic forms company focused on helping hospitals all across the U.S. and abroad, for that matter, take paper out of process and turn that paper into paperless in a lot of cases and efficient paperless processes in many, many different ways. With us today is Joanne Ferrara. Joanne is a customer of Access, been a customer of Access for many years. Joanne's up in the New Jersey area with Raritan Bay Medical Center. And so we're going to hear from Joanne today about the process and things that she went through as an organization to get rid of pre-printed forms and some of the opportunities that she saw in doing so, some of the challenges she faced. And this webinar, we do a lot of these webinars for new potential customers out there as well as our customer base. And this one is a little different in that Joanne has some perspective of when things don't go quite right. How does Access respond? We don't talk about that a lot, right? And luckily we don't have a lot of those instances out there. But when it does happen, Access isn't perfect, right? As no other vendor out there is. So how do we respond? How do we react to those kinds of situations? So Joanne's going to talk through some of that. Just a little bit of background on who Joanne is, and then I'll pass it over to her to get started. Joanne is 23 years of experience in the healthcare industry. She spent 20 years in HIM management, various management roles from nursing homes, developmental disabled group homes, teaching and non-teaching organizations, as well as working at home and end-of-life treatment alternatives. She has an applied associate's degree in business administration, HIM, BS in legal studies, as well as an MBA. She holds certifications in RHIT and CHP, as well as career includes, HIM management, like I said, privacy. She's been a privacy officer, patient relations director, HIM directors. She's also serves on the HEMA and the New Jersey HEMA within that organization, and then she's a current member of the HIM board at Rutgers University and DeVry University. So Joanne, it is great to have you today. I'm very much looking forward to hearing what you had to say, and I just want to tell the audience that you're in listen-only mode while Joanne goes through the presentation. But I would really like for you to please, if you have questions, get those questions entered into the dialog box that you have there within your GoToWebinar, and those will be sent over to Lindsay Eaton, who is running this for us today, and Lindsay will organize those questions and get those asked towards the end. We will save plenty of time at the end to allow you guys to ask any and all those questions that you have. So with that, Joanne, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you take it away.
Great. Thanks so much, Chad, for the introduction. I appreciate it. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. As Chad said, I'm presently the director of HIM at Raritan Bay Medical Center in New Jersey. We are a two-campus hospital. We have a larger campus in Perth Amboy and a smaller campus in Old Bridge, New Jersey. Together, we're over 500 beds. We have many different services throughout the facility, plus we also have off-site clinics and doctor's offices. It's nice to work at Raritan Bay because we are ranked in the top 10% of New Jersey hospitals for surgical care, and we are a magnet hospital, something that our nurses take great pride in. So that's a little bit about Raritan Bay Medical Center. I really wanted to tell you about both facilities because in implementing this particular product, we had to implement it two very different ways for both campuses. Every hospital is unique, and even though we do have two campuses, both campuses had very unique needs, and that's why the application really worked well for us because it was adaptable. Chad did mention that we did have a rocky start, but that's okay. We got through it very, very nicely, and we actually learned a lot from our mistakes, quite honestly. It made the application stronger and better, and it made our processes actually stronger and better for both of our sites. At Raritan Bay Medical Center, we actually have a print shop. Not many hospitals do, but we do have an in-house print shop. our print shop can print the wide majority of the forms that are in our medical records, but we also use an outside company to print a lot of our forms. Basically, forms cost us a lot of money because we do utilize, as many of you do, different color forms, different size forms. They fold, they're perforated, so it does become very, very costly, especially when you use Cardex paper. Even though I'm the director of medical records, I do have oversight over the print shop, which is a little bit odd. But actually, it helped us with the forms committee because I do chair the forms committee, as many HIM directors do. And this really helped us look at paper forms and also to take the paper forms and turn them to electronic forms. We spent about $12,000 a year to dispose of outdated forms, and that's what really got me on this kick to go electronic. It was amazing how we would print everything in batches, very large batches. And we would either house them here at Raritan Bay, Perth Amboy, or we actually paid our outside vendor to hold on to all the extra copies for us. So believe it or not only do we pay the outside vendor to print all our forms, but then we actually paid them rent to hold the forms on for us. So we were paying rent for these forms, and there could be 500 forms sitting on their shelves, and then a new rule or regulation would come out from Joint Commission, and lo and behold, they would then charge us to dispose of all of those forms. So when looking at all of these different costs for us, it really made me acutely aware of how much money we spent on printing them, on destroying them, and then to make sure we got them all off of the floors. Because you know how the floors like to hoard or collect or keep their own little private stash for themselves. And we really found it difficult as we were changing with the Joint Commission rules and regulations or Department of Health rules or regulations that, of course, these old forms kept reappearing in our medical record. So it was hard to always wrap our arms around it, especially with our other campus, our Old Bridge campus, because we used to ship forms to them because they were all housed at Perth Amboy. And again, because we always shipped in large quantities. We did not want them to run out of forms. But then again, it was a whole process to get rid of those old forms on each and every nursing unit. So it was an interesting task to undertake, but pulling the old versions from the floors were one of our biggest challenges. We actually had to do paper raids, and nobody really likes those. So we created a lot of new forms, and we updated our existing ones in a very slow and tedious process. But it was something we need to do, especially when you're building an electronic medical record. You want to make sure you're building something that you should be building. When we had paper forms, it was very difficult for us to register our patients during downtime because, again, we would label and label and label everything. So once the systems were down and we couldn't create a label, how do we put a patient's name on here? So many times registrars or the unit assistants were actually writing the patient's name on the piece of paper. We lived by labels. We spent lots and lots of money on labels and, again, disposing of labels because we would print 10 sheets of labels per patient. And then if we didn't use all 10 labels, well, we had to get rid of them because it would have been a new account number the next time the patient came in the house. So we had really waste on many different ends. So we went out there and we started looking for vendors. Honestly, there were so many vendors out there. We are a Siemens shop, so we did look to Siemens to make some recommendations for us. We looked at other vendors as well that went beyond the Siemens affiliation. And basically, we were looking for best practices. We were looking for ways to streamline our current practice. And as well, we just never did this before, so we were really looking for someone who had enough expertise to kind of lead us through the path and get us there from A to B without getting lost along the way. So in meeting all the different vendors, we did choose Access eForms. They came in, they did many presentations, they did demos for us, and they help us really centralize our forms management between both facilities. Because again, it becomes very easy for both facilities to start using different versions of a form, or one hospital will be using the form and the other hospital is not. When we really put everything all together, it gave us the availability of really managing and keeping hold of it. So it enabled us between both facilities to really make it work. And that was very difficult in the beginning because it really was something where everybody's set in their ways and they're used to using certain forms or not using them at all. So it was a way for us to really put everything all together, pull both facilities together, and look at it. And in the long run, I have to say that today, most of the employees at Raritan Bay would not want to be one day without their Access E-forms up and working. It helped us as well with downtime, and it helped us just really go through a lot of our processes. It was challenging, though, because so many of the staff members had a filing cabinet that was all forms. They loved that filing cabinet, and they really didn't want to separate from their paper. But again, it really became that we really have to be using the latest and greatest forms, and we really needed to make sure that both facilities had the same medical record. They should look the same, they should be in the same order, and it would be a way for us to know that it was a Raritan Bay medical record, not a Perth or an Old Bridge chart. And that's something we struggled with at the beginning. It took us a lot of time to work on it, and I'm sorry to be honest with you, there were some bumps in the road. As we were bringing up the application and we were trying to roll it out to different users, we did have a lot of issues. And again, we've never done this before, so we really were looking for the leadership and the expertise. So we kind of stumbled along the way, but Access E-forms really reorganized their team, reorganized their efforts, and they came out again to us, and they started from the very beginning. So it was just, let's just start over. Let's just do it again, and let's make believe the beginning never happened. And that really helped us. But again, we learned from our mistakes because, quite honestly, the paper process got better for us in discovering how to make the electronic paper flow so much better for us. So it helped. And though no one likes to learn from their mistakes, it did help us in the long run. So we did save the money for disposing of the forms. We did save on the actual rent, the space at our off-site of keeping those forms, and then we decreased the use of our labels. And quite honestly, once you start scanning, you don't want labels. Labels are the #1 enemy to any scanner. So we saved money on that, and it also saved me in the long run of repairing my scanners because they weren't getting all caught up and jammed up from using the labels over and over again. We did have our in-house print shop. It's not like our in-house print shop went away. But what they did is they used to print all the paper, and then it would go to our volunteer department, and the volunteers would sit around and actually create the packet that our admitting office would use and our ER would use when they admitted a patient. So basically, we were very dependent upon the printer always be up and running in our print shop, our volunteers always being available to put the packets together, and then someone taking the packet from Perth Amboy to Old Bridge. So we were pushing a lot of paper back and forth, and if they ran out of something at Old Bridge or Perth Amboy and the print shop was closed, it created another issue for us. It really took a lot of people and a lot of hours to create these paper packets, and many times the paper packets then became incomplete because someone would come and borrow a packet, not use it all, and then put it back on the shelf for someone else to use, and they weren't realizing they were missing half the papers. So the paper process really showed a lot of room of error for us. And it was something that was challenging to all of the end users on the nursing unit, and especially at our Old Bridge campus who did not have direct access to the print shop because it was in Perth Amboy. And if we didn't ship something in time, they didn't have their paper available for their patients. So in the long run, it saved us a lot of labor hours by registrars, by the transporting team who sent it back and forth. It saved hours for the volunteer services. We were able to put our volunteers back on the floor with the patients, which is just a wonderful thing to do. And it just was something that was better for everybody once they got used to it. So it was nice to save money, but it was also nice to save manpower hours and use them more efficiently for patient care. So before Access E-forms, we had a registration process that was very, very cumbersome. There were 8 or 9 steps for us to actually work our way through the registration process. So the registrar will pull the packet after they registered a patient, and they would pull the packet by patient type, inpatient, outpatient, observation, same-day surgery. So they would have to go to a shelf in registration and pull out the right packet. They would give the packet to the patients to fill out certain information, or they would actually put on the label on each and every page. And if it was downtime, they were writing. And many times they would misspell patients' names if they kept writing it over and over again. So they would give all the paper to the patients. They would actually hand sign it with ink. And then the registrar or the UA or someone would label as many pages as they can. It would go through the whole stay with the patient. They would use as many labels as they needed. They would use as many pieces of paper as they needed. If they had a surplus of paper or labels, again, they went into the garbage. If they didn't have enough, they would then ask for more, and we would refill their supply. And again, that supply may not be all used. But in the end, everything ended up in the trash. When all those forms came to medical records, we now had to put them all in order by hand. And then when we started scanning, we had to index each and every page. That really took us a long time because we didn't have the barcode recognition in the beginning. And that took us a long time to get through it. And many times, because of how paper came down from the nursing unit, there was a lot of room for error. Some pages were labeled, some were not labeled, and we were not sure if they belonged to that patient's chart. We often had other patients intermingled with each other. It was something that it just left so much room for error when it was a very manual process. If they ran out of labels, things were handwritten until they got their new batch of labels. If the patient left and came back the next day, they would use the same label again with the wrong account number on it. So it was very difficult for us to really keep track of everything with a very manual function. When we knew we had a planned downtime coming, we would actually reprint many, many forms, send them up to all the nursing units because we weren't sure how many patients we were going to get during that downtime. And we did have a planned downtime, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and depending on as many hours of downtime we would encounter, that's how many forms we would send up to the units, both at Perth and Old Bridge. And then sometimes those forms came back to us to recycle and reuse, and other times they just honestly ended up in the trash. So there was a lot of waste, there was a lot of effort put in for a planned downtime, and then it really didn't always give us a good payoff in the end. So we really knew that we needed to redo our process. We knew that we had to walk away from a manual process and an outdated process, and we needed to find an electronic solution that didn't just solve our problems at the moment of registration, but would actually help us throughout the whole patient stay. And not just during the patient stay, but upon discharge, help us become more efficient in the medical records department, help us to process all of the discharges that we had, help us to really organize ourselves and be more productive and help us move to an electronic medical record, because that's really everyone's goal, to come to an electronic medical record. So we really needed to find a way to be efficient, to be effective, and to really be much more accurate in how we were processing all of our patient information. So we went from an 8-step process, and after Access eForms, we pretty much got it down to 5 steps or less. So right now, when a patient is registered, either at any point of registration now, it could be in our same-day surgery, it could be in the ER, through our admitting department, whatever patient type the patient is being admitted under, all the electronic forms are underneath that heading. So if you needed an inpatient chart, you would just go to the inpatient section, and you would print everything that you would need for that particular patient. In the upper right-hand corner is the patient demographic. So all the pages were easily indexed now by patient name, as well as having a barcode attached to it. And that barcode interfaced with our EDM application under the Siemens application that we have. So it would tell EDM when we were processing it in medical records that this particular chart belonged to this patient for this account number, and this was the doc type that it was. And again, it was end-to-end efficiency for us. So it created the customized packets for us for each and every type of admission. The patient demographics was always there and accurate on every single page. The patient no longer had to take a pen to a piece of paper to sign all of our consent forms. They would use an e-signature pad, and they would sign everything, and electronically it would all be in one place at one time. It really helped decrease our patient unable to sign, quite honestly, just because it was so easy for the patient to sign on the Access eForms signature pad. Upon discharge, it helped us. We didn't have to put everything in order now, because once it had that barcode on it, we can just feed it through the scanner, and it would electronically be placed in the right folder. We have folders within EDM for each and every patient. So it would categorize everything for us. All our progress notes were together. All our physician orders were together. So it clumped everything by the type of paper it was. and then it was there for every single patient. So that if another patient's form somehow got intermingled into another patient, it would immediately kick out as an error. So we didn't get that opportunity to misfile, so to say. So during the downtime as well, we had to think about our downtime process. We, again, would, during a planned downtime, we would pre-print papers for everybody that was in the house. So on the nursing units, they really liked it because they can go ahead and they could force print progress notes, blank progress notes, blank physician order forms, anything that they needed blanks for the next hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it might be. They would go ahead, because it was a planned downtime, they would print everything in advance, put it in the patient chart, and that really helped ease the physician's anguish, quite honestly, when there was a downtime, because everything that they needed was not only there, but it was in the correct patient's chart. So they just had to open it up, and they continue writing or doing whatever they needed to do during the downtime, and we still had the advantage of having that patient name on there and the barcode, which helped us a lot. So not only did we go from 8 steps to 5 steps, but within those 5 steps, we actually found efficiencies that made everyone happy. It was really a crowd pleaser for us, and you don't get many of those along the way. You don't get many real big physician wows all the time, but the physicians really love that they continue on even though it was downtime and it didn't phase them at all. That really helped us a lot. I have to say that our quality assurance department and our joint commission teams really like this product as well, because it really helped us to make sure that once we made a correction to a form, instantaneously, once we put into Access eForms, that was the only form version available, because it versions all of your documents. So it really kept the current, latest, and greatest forms out there and available for people to print. So it was no longer look for those forms, don't use them anymore. They weren't there. We would instantly upload it to Access eForms, and the next time they hit print, it was the latest and greatest forms. So that really helped us. Because again, I believe that many times there were 6 versions of the same form out there. It really depended on what nursing unit you were in and, unfortunately, which facility you were in. And that really took that margin of error away from us. It would also help our billing department, because they were very happy that we were collecting more signatures up front and wasn't patient unable to sign all the time. So that really was another crowd pleaser for us, and they were happy to have that signature. We had the patient's name, medical record number, and account number on every single page, and that helped us with CMS, Department of Health, because they always want to see the patient ID on every single page, front and back. And many times you miss the back of a page. But this way we pre-programmed it, and anytime we created a form, we always made sure there was room for that demographics in their front and back page, and that helped a lot. It also helped with us so that we were not manually writing information any longer, whether it be downtime or there wasn't a form available or someone ran out of labels, because they can easily go in and reprint whatever they wanted to off of the nursing unit. So every single unit had access to it. They would see the census. They would see the patient. They can easily pick the patient, and it was there for them. We came up with favorites for every single nursing unit. So if a nursing unit tends to use the same piece of paper over and over and over again, they had a little favorites. So they didn't have to search our whole repository for the form that they wanted. They didn't have to search by name. They didn't have to search by lead number, all of our forms. They didn't have to know the form number. We created a favorites for every single nursing unit. So if it was critical care and they know they needed their critical care notes, they went right there, they clicked on that, they clicked the patient, and now came the paper for them. So it was really quick and easy that not only the UAs would use it, but also the nurses would use it. It was very quick and easy and simple, and they didn't have to wait for a UA or someone to come and print labels for them and then stick that label on a piece of paper. So it really became efficient for everyone on the nursing unit to use, because it was so easy to use it. And it really just helped us keep track of volume, what we were using, what we were not using. And it also made us look at why are some nursing units not using this particular form. Every other nursing unit is using it, and it really helped us on the QA side and as well with our QA team for them to make sure that all the forms are being utilized for all of the patients so they can capture all the information that they needed. So it really overall helped us meet all of our regulatory requirements, because they're ever changing, and it was something that made us react as quickly as they can write a new rule or regulation for us. So again, it really helped us within the medical records department It was less scanning indexing for us. The staff really enjoyed the fact that they didn't have to put together every single chart, every single piece of paper, every single time. So it really gave us a lot of efficiencies. And again, the staff got to do other tasks within the department. Nobody lost their job over this. We all became more efficient and more effective, and we were able to take on the new challenges of an electronic medical record and the other things we were doing in the medical records department. It really helped us to work on our workflow and make it more seamless for everybody. It was easier to train new employees because everybody was learning the same thing because they were learning from the same Access e-form. So whether it was a new registrar, and we had high turnover of the registrars at the time, it was easy for them to go in and learn how to use the product. The UAs on the floors, we had temps many times, and it was easy for them to just log in and learn how to use the system, especially with the favorites. It's very intuitive. It's very easy to learn, and it really is just point and click, and you have exactly what you need. It helped in my forms committee process as well because, again, we were always keeping our eye on the paper forms and thinking of how to make them electronic. With Access e-forms, it helped us with that vision. It helped us look at that form, say, what do we need, what don't we need, do we have the demographics there? So it helped us to create uniformed look to all of our forms. We've always had the patient's name on the front and back page. We had the Raritan Bay on there. It looked professional. It looked clean. There's no more photocopying of forms. Things are crooked. Things are straight. Things are a little grayed out. There's a line down the middle. It actually gave us beautiful, readable forms that were up to date, current, and were just perfect when you're scanning them. And that's very important. Whether it's coming electronically or scanning it, you need that perfect image. So at this point, I would say that about 40% of everything in our patient medical record is from Access e-form. And we're constantly building on that every single day. Our forms committee now includes our print shop because they take the application of Access e-forms, they upload the images, and they put it out there for all the nursing units. So again, in the print shop, it created a more efficient way for them to create forms, produce forms, and have them readily available for all the nursing units. So the print shop staff really get to focus on creating a beautiful form, putting it out there in the system for everybody to use. And everything was exactly the same no matter what floor you were on or what hospital you were at. And that was one of the overall benefits for us. And again, just having a perfect form out there helped us because too many times, especially when we had colored forms and people chose to copy them instead of getting them from the print shop, they were gray. And we couldn't scan them well, we couldn't read them, and it just did not look good on the medical record at all. But again, it was a long process. It was an interesting process. It had a lot of aha moments for us to think about the good, the bad, the evil. How do we fix it? How do we overcome it? How do we get everyone to use it? But again, it was working with the right partner. It was working with someone who had expertise, can bring it to the table, and really lead you down the right path. Because again, you don't want to be wandering down the wrong path and have to do everything all over again. So when we met the Access team and we started using the product, and again, we had a very bumpy beginning, but because of how they responded to us, we decided we need to move forward with this. We need to make it work because we know it can work. Something went wrong along the way. We all acknowledged that, and we just started new. And in starting new, it helped us really get to where we are today. And again, we were looking for the right partner, and Access eForms knows healthcare. That's their background. They understand our language. We all speak our own language, but they understood our acute care needs. They understood what we need in our physician offices. They understood all the users in healthcare and what it means. When we needed extra help, they gave us the extra help. They put more of their experts on our case, helped them do this for them, support them, show them the right way, and they all did. They all moved in. They helped us. We had conference calls. They came on site. They did whatever they needed to do to move us in the right direction and keep us progressing at a very nice pace. And we talked. It was strong communication on both ends of us talking about the good, the bad, and the evil. So with us constantly talking to each other and updating each other on the process, it really helped us update all of our solutions within the organization as well as getting to use their solution to its ultimate standard. And that's what it's all about. Because the technology is there. They had all the technology. They had all the bells and whistles that I needed. It was just how do we get to use it, how do we use it efficiently, and how do we roll it out to our end users so that it is just something they can't live without, and it truly has become that today. So we do get the most from their solution. We do benefit from it on many different levels, and quite honestly, the downtime is limited. I really don't have times where I have to tell people, oh, Access eForms isn't working. I'm sorry, you're going to have to use paper. That's really not part of our conversations. It's a strong solution. There's a lot of strong technology behind it. It works well, and it's always there. It's always up and running. Because of all the issues we had in the beginning, quite honestly, we had a book of forms, our just-in-case book, in case we had to make copies. And quite honestly, it's extremely dusty now because we really didn't have to go back to it and use it just in case, because the application is up and running wide majority of the time. I would say 99% of the time. So they stuck with us. They stuck to the issues until they were resolved. And where I wasn't a very happy customer in the beginning, I'm at the point now where I'm willing to say lots of good things about them, and I feel that they're genuine because we had our issues. We've overcome them, and not only have we overcome them, but the success that we're having with the product was well worth the journey for us. And it also allowed us to take a critical look at ourselves, at our own processes internally, and fix it. So I really appreciated the whole process, though maybe at the time I didn't sound like that. I did really in the long run because everybody learned from the experience. And it really is an application that my users love. They use it. They are eager to deal with all of the changes that come along the way because they know every single change is only going to help them with their workflow. It's only beneficial to them. They all get very excited when I send them an email saying, okay, we have 5 new forms out there on Access eForms. Please use them. You'll see them on your favorites list. They actually get excited, or they'll call me or send me email saying, when are my forms going to be on Access eForms? I don't want any paper forms anymore. I really want everything on Access. Put me at the top of the list. And with Joint Commission coming yet again for us, it seems like they're here all the time. We are in the process of our 18-month window until they show up. So we have tons and tons of forms going into Access eForms. Plus, again, we're updating old forms to meet the new rules and regulations. So we send out our emails. We let them know about the changes. And instantaneously, that new form is ready and available for everyone. So success was a little bit of a long path for us, but it definitely was a path well taken. And we truly are a very happy customer. And again, because of the dedication on the Access eForms side, and as well as the dedication of Raritan Bay, just making sure that we all got where we were supposed to be. So it was a very good experience for us, and I'm very, very happy to speak about it today and really tell you what a worthwhile process it is for you to go paperless and go electronic. And while you're doing that, why Access eForms is really the best option for you. And I thank you all for your time and listening to me and telling you a little bit about Raritan Bay and how we use solutions to the best of its ability.
Joanne, thank you so much. That was that was extremely insightful to hear the journey in which you took along this road. Certainly means a whole lot more coming from you than it would me speaking to this group. That's for sure, as an Access employee. So I can't thank you enough. Lindsay, I'm going to ask you now if we have any questions. We promised that we would save plenty of time, and so we want to do that and serve up any and all those questions that exist.
Great. Thank you, Joanne and Chad. We did have a couple of questions come in, so feel free to keep asking questions while we have the time that Joanne can answer those. So the first question for you, Joanne, is what benefit surprised you most about going paperless?
I guess it really was the financial benefit, to be honest with you. I never realized how much money we were spending on paper, on labels, on storing forms, as well as on destroying them. It was just really an eye-opener for myself and as well as the organization to see how much we were spending on that and also how much we were wasting in the long run. So the financial gain was a surprise. We were looking forward to the patient safety gain because it is all about patient safety, and it really enabled us to keep on track with having the right patient name on the right form. So we expected the outcome of patient safety. We didn't expect how much money we'd be saving in the process.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next question that came in is, do the units have access to see all forms available for printing?
It depends. What we decided to do at Raritan Bay was with areas such as same-day surgery and the ER, where they can see any patient at any time, we gave them full access to the repository for all patients in all forms because they would get patients from all different areas at any given time. Otherwise, on the nursing units could see every single form that would pertain to an inpatient or an outpatient form. We didn't put the clinic forms in there or the forms that they would not use. We took it out of their view. But that's what also gave us the idea of doing the favorites, so that they do have their favorite list with all the forms that they use most often. But if it wasn't on the favorite list and they needed to go to the main repository, yes, of course, they can see everything that was in the repository.
Okay. Also, how does the Access eForm interact with patient demographics?
We have an ADT feed that goes into Access eForms so that the patient demographics is always readily available. What's also good about it is we have our transactions going in there as well, so that when patients change nursing units, that also shows on that. So all of our transactions constantly go in our ADT feed to, again, keep current with the patient wherever they might be in all their different locations within the facility.
Okay, thank you. That was a two-part question. I missed that second question. The next question is, what application do you currently use for surgical scheduling, and do the PAT folks use your eForm system?
We currently use Stat Scheduler, but again, it doesn't matter what system you're using because the Access eForms forms are readily available based on patient type. So PAT is using it for all of our patients. So again, with the ADT feed, they are getting the information for pre-admission testing prior to any surgical procedure so that they can go in and print all the forms for the patients during that PAT encounter. Even though an admit date might not be set or a surgery date might not be set, they still have access to it and they can use all of their forms. And actually, PAT is one of my departments that loved it the most because they do have all different patients coming to them. Sometimes our patients get tested in one facility but actually have their procedure in another facility. So this is a way to make everything very seamless to them, to have all the information there. They can fill it out at either facility. We can send it back and forth. So it was a very convenient process for PAT to use this. And they're one of my users that call me all the time and want to be on the top of my list for all of their forms to be entered into there.
Okay, next question for you is, how soon do you feel your facility will meet a break-even point on your Access investment?
I think we surpassed that, quite honestly. We were spending a lot of money on paper and labels and rent and destruction. So we really found that between saving those dollars as well as saving the work hours of people putting the packets together and then transporting them between facilities, within the first year of using Access eForms, I think we more than hit, break even for paying for the product. We had a lot of efficiencies with man hours as well as actual product, whether it be paper or label. So we really felt the impact from both sides of that, and it really just helped us feel the gain sooner than later.
That was a great answer. The next question that came in is, do any of your physician office schedulers use the hospital eForms for surgical procedure medical information?
Not at this point. We don't use it. They have their own forms internally that they use at the surgical site, and we only have one right now, quite honestly. Most of our physician offices are medical, but they do use Access eForms for their general forms, such as intake forms, so they can use the intake forms.
Okay. Next question is, how do you correct if a unit clerk chooses the wrong encounter?
Yes. What we do is we actually set a timeline to how long an account is available in the system, so that everyone's medical record number is always their medical record number, we hope, and we don't give them a dupe. But every time you come into the organization, you get a unique account number. What we do is once someone is discharged, we only leave that account active in our system for 3 days. After 3 days, that account number is no longer available in Access eForms, so it really cuts down on them picking the wrong account number. And that's something we, again, learned the hard way and through our processes, because we had the buffer at 30 days originally, and so many times they were picking the wrong account number because there was just too much to choose from, and we have patients who come back time and time again, especially in our medical day stay or different outpatient areas where account numbers can be created. So we changed the buffer to 3 days. So 3 days post-discharge, that account number is no longer available. You can't pick it, and it really helped us increase our efficiency, again, with having the right patient information on the right chart.
Okay, thank you. How many nursing units do you have, and how long did it take to roll out?
At Perth Amboy, we have, between outpatient and inpatient nursing units, probably about 12. At Old Bridge, I think we have about 7. We decided to roll out one facility and then the other. We didn't do them at the same time. So we did one nursing unit every 3 days. And then if we had to backtrack, we backtracked to another nursing unit. It took us longer in some of the other units, our smaller units, such as same-day surgery and ICU, CCU. It was a quicker and easier turnaround because it was less staff to train. But when we got to the larger units that had a very high census, it took us a longer time to train people. So even though we had it so neatly mapped out that every 3 days we're going to go to a new nursing unit, we kept on adjusting that along the way for Perth and Old Bridge. And then because we're 24/7, there's different shifts as well. So what we did is we reached out to our patient education team. They helped us train off shifts. We had our staff development team also train per diems, part-timers, agency nurses whenever needed. We put out tip sheets for everybody along the way to help with the education process and keep them current. So I would say we rolled out every 3 days a brand new nursing unit. But even once we rolled it out, we did have times where we needed to go back to users and help them along the way. You know, there's a turnover in staff. Somebody was out on leave. Someone just returned. But again, it's a quick and easy training session. It's something that if you just have one-to-one time with somebody, you could probably teach them how to use it in 15 to 20 minutes. And that's what we did for training. I actually put my trainers on the nursing unit. We went up to the nursing unit. We would train the UAs, we would train the nurses, and we would move from unit to unit to unit and just work on it like that. And what we found, again, even though we carved out every 3 days for a new unit, if one unit was just too busy, we would skip them and go to another unit, train who we could, and then go back to that unit that we skipped. So I learned that the training needed to be very fluid because of what goes on in a nursing unit, and they all wanted to learn it, so you didn't want to skip anybody when they were so excited about this. So we felt that on-the-floor training and having our trainers roam the nursing units was really the best way to train everybody. And then again, once you got their attention in 15, 20 minutes, they knew how to use the product. And that's where we really get the bang for the buck. So you're not pulling them off the nursing unit. You're not putting them in a training room for a half hour, an hour to teach them all how to do it. It was just easier to go onto the floors, work around their schedule, and that really gave them buy-in as well, because once they trained on it and they saw how easy it was, and even though their day was busy and hectic, they can fit this in, they loved it. They easily embraced it and started using it. Most of the users, as we were training them, they started using the product right away.
That's great, thank you. Next question is, do you print face sheets and patient wristbands from Access?
We do the wristbands from Access. Our face sheets, quite honestly, we don't reproduce those anymore into paper. We have an electronic feed. Access eForms prints it electronically, and it goes into EDM. We don't print it to paper until they hit the nursing unit because we know that you could change their insurance at least 10 times. So we do that, but we do our patient labels on there, and we do our armbands as well, and they do have the barcode.
Okay, next question is, can the e-forms be set up to be filled out by patients online and sent in prior to surgery?
I believe, yes, now with the new version of Access e-forms, which we're not up to quite yet, you can take all of the forms that you have in Access e-forms and now make it available for patients and practitioners to fill out all the information on the form. So it can become a front-end solution for you for intake information for the patients as well as the practitioners filling it out during clinical care of the patient.
Yeah, and I'll just expand on that just a touch. And like Joanne said, they're not utilizing this today, but what that enables you to do is launch completely web-based fillable forms out of what Joanne is calling EFR, the eForms repository. So you can pick a patient, select forms, and launch forms with demographics and so forth applied, but then be able to fill those forms out online in a completely 100% web-based fashion without any printing whatsoever, and still have those forms flow over into, in Joanne's case, EDM or any other document imaging system that you may wish to do so with, as well as dump into any open backend database, both to and from those forms as they're launched. So, Lindsay, back to you.
Okay, thank you. Next question, Joanne, is can you print different logos on the forms when you have multiple facilities within a system?
Yes, yes. We're all Raritan Bay, and we keep everything with the Raritan Bay logo because we are branding. That was very important to our marketing department that we use the same logo all the time because, again, in the past, Raritan Bay had like 5 different logos circulating around on our different forms. We actually chose to move in the other direction to make it standardize our logo, but it does take different logos and it puts it on whatever form you need it.
Okay, and what type of feed do you use for the wristbands to EDM?
I'm sorry?
The question is, what type of feed do you use for the wristbands to EDM?
You got me on that one. That I'm not quite sure of. I'm sorry. My IT skills in that area are a little limited.
Yeah, I think what that question may be referring to when we're talking about wristbands, we're talking about thermal printing of those wristbands, right, Joanne, in singles and one-off fashion. Those wristbands are not necessarily sent automatically over into EDM, but rather printed one-off for single use, rather than printing via laser printer a whole sheet of
oh, no.
or something like that nature.
Right. We do one wristband, and we actually defaulted to only one because we do use a Mac system where you can barcode from the wristband. So we don't want anyone to have more than one wristband so that everyone is really using that barcode, the original barcode only for the Mac. So we make sure that when we print that wristband that you can only print one of them. Because, again, you wouldn't want multiples out there because someone might be tempted to print 3 or 4 and put them in their pocket, and instead of using the Mac like it should be off the patient's arm and checking the identifiers, we have 3 identifiers, patient identifiers, patient safety. If they had the wristbands in their pocket, they could just zap, zap, zap with everything in their pocket. But the whole idea is patient safety, and for the nurses or the unit assistants, whoever it is, the PCA is dealing with the patients to actually approach the patient, look at their armband, and do the 3 points of identity. Name, date of birth, and if they don't match, we ask for a third one, which we look up in our system, which is usually your address. So that's how we do for patient identity, and that's why there's only one wristband, and that's the original wristband that is on the patient's arm.
Okay. The next question is, who designs the forms in the system, HIM or print shop?
My print shop does. Oh, they do a great job. My print shop had to learn everything brand new. So they did a great job of working with the Access eForms team to really learn how to create forms. In the beginning, to give us a good start, Access eForms did 100 forms for us So we sent them 100 forms. They created those first 100 forms for us so we can get up and running, because we really wanted as many forms as possible when we started training on the floors. So that gave us a really good kickstart of having enough in Access E-forms, having enough to go out there and train for the nursing units, and it allowed time for our print shop to learn how to create forms. And of course, when you first learn something, there's a little bit of a learning curve, and it takes you a little bit longer. And it did in the beginning. It did take them longer. And again, please don't believe that I have a big print shop. I have 2 people that are doing this. And they both learned it really, really well. They both can create forms, and they do a wonderful job of that. And even with updating the forms, they learned how to update the forms. They learned how to make duplex forms as opposed to single forms. So there was a lot to learn along the way. And that was a nice thing as well with Access E-forms, as we encountered new and different forms, especially when you have to put on bodies and shapes. Access E-forms was just a phone call away to really walk them through it, because, again, you don't know the questions you need to ask until you do it, and you don't know what you don't know until you're doing it. So it was nice that we constantly had that resource to call someone for help as we were creating forms, because the more forms I sent down to the print shop, the more unique every form that they were touching looked to them, and they needed the additional support. So it was nice to have that person holding your hand all the way through, instead of just saying to you, okay, we taught you how to create forms, now you're on your own, create your form. It wasn't like that. It was a very collaborative effort to get us all through all the different types of forms. And honestly, to this day, we still call for help with certain forms, how to format them, how to turn them, how to get different images on them. And there's always that good relationship going back and forth where we definitely have a lot of help and support.
Great. Next question is, who were the leading stakeholders for this project from your management team? If they were to decide to review access for their facility, which people on my team should be involved?
When we were doing the initial vendor look-throughs and the demos, our IT staff was on there. The print shop was at all of the sessions. Myself as the director was there with some of my other staff members to look at it. We included nursing, because you should always include nursing because they are the end user. So with nursing, we had 1 or 2 nurse managers, and we had 2 UAs on the team. I got to think about this. It was a while ago. And I think we had 1 of our residents on the team as well. So when we were going through the demos, we tried to get as many users as we can in the room to really look at it and invest in it. And then when we came down to our final 3, we invited some additional people to look at it and give some input. And then when we came down to the final 2, we invited the CFO because we did need him to sign the check. So we included him and senior leadership at that time. And that's how we progressed through it, because initially we looked at 6 different vendors. We got down to 3, then to 2, and then to Access E-forms.
Perfect. We still have a couple more questions left. So how many forms are in the repository?
Oh, my. I'm going to take a guess and tell you that we have at least 300 in there.
All
and
right.
more to go, unfortunately. My print shop is a little busy.
Well, that's good for them. The next question that came in is, what was the #1 lesson learned from your initial try at implementation?
Oh, we learned a lot of lessons. You know, when we installed it, because we've never done it before, I don't think we asked all the right questions of who is it going to affect, how is it going to affect them, how long does it take to get a form in there and make it available to everybody. So I think that the #1 thing that we learned is we should do a little more investigating internally to make sure that we were ready, because even when we were ready to start creating forms, I didn't have enough forms committees to actually feed to my print shop to create forms. So my forms committee in the olden days met once a month, once every 3 months. So once every 3 months, people got to bring their forms forward, go through the forms committee, and either get approved or disapproved, and it really slowed down our process. So we actually have a forms meeting every month now. And if there's no forms to present, then we don't have the meeting. But if someone has a form, even if it's one form, we don't want to hold up the process. So the forms committee gets together, we look at a form, and then we put it through the approval process. So we just keep it moving. And I think in the beginning we didn't know that, and it really gave us a lot of starts and stops, starts and stops, starts and stops. But once we started meeting on a monthly basis, and there was a regular flow of forms coming through the forms committee and getting ready to go to the print shop, it really made things much more fluid for us. So again, it was all our own internal processes that we had to look at, but because we never did it before, we didn't think about all of the issues that could happen along the way. And then, of course, you'll have a well-laid plan of what form you're going to do this month or next month, and then someone will come running to the print shop and say, wait, there's a new rule out for Joint Commission or Department of Health, and we need to have this form corrected right away. We need to add this to the consent form. We need to add this. Oh, it's time to do the NPP again. So, let's make sure we get our summary sheet out there so people can print it. So it's a lot of, yes, we had some great plans, but then you have to be adaptable as well to your work environment.
Okay, this is the final question for you, Joanne. What were the leading points that helped your team select Access?
I think since it works so well with our current system, and they knew our Siemens system so well, it helped a lot. I like that they were very upfront from the very beginning of, this is what we're all about, this is how you use the product, this is the right solution, because I didn't feel like it was overselling and they were overselling me, because many times with the other vendors, it was such a hard sell that you really didn't understand the benefits of the product because there was so much glossing when you just really want to know the nitty-gritty. Will it work? How well would it work? How often will it work? What's the downtime? What's the learning curve? I think what sold me the most was seeing how easily the end user can learn how to use it. Because, again, the nursing units never did this before. Many of our UAs were not IT savvy and didn't use the computer all the time. So this would demand more time of them to go on the computer and processing the forms that they needed. So I think what sold me was to see how seamless and easy it was for the end user to use it, because, again, it's very intuitive. Once you go in and you're used to using a web-based application of point and click, it is point and click. It's there for you. Your nursing unit pops up. Your census pops up for your nursing unit. You have your favorites list, which makes it very quick and easy for you to pick out exactly what you need. The repository, if you have to dig into the repository, you can sort it by the name of the form. You can do a search on it. So it's very easy to find. You can add things to your favorite list by just sending us an email. So I just think how user-friendly it is really what sold it for me, whereas some of the other products were very cumbersome on the user side. This was clean, easy, and it just made sense. It's just something that was easy to learn because it was very, very logical what to do next. So it made the end users very comfortable in using it because they felt that quick success of, oh, wow, I can do this. Oh, it's really simple, and I don't have to wait for forms anymore. Oh, that's great news. I don't have to photocopy it when the print shop's closed. Oh, so they really embraced it because it was so easy to use, and that's what really sold me on the product.
Thanks, Joanne, for answering the questions. Chad,
No problem.
I will pass it back to you for closing.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Lindsay, and thank you, Joanne, again. Very, very insightful, as I said before. I know you've got just a few other irons in the fire this afternoon, so we're going to let you run. But I just want to extend an invite to anyone and everyone who's listening and asking all the great questions today. There's quite a few of you on the line. And Lindsay, if you could just please put your contact information into the in the chat window, so that anyone and everyone on this line has a contact point in order to get to their appropriate rep in the appropriate territory, wherever you may be. If you have further questions, further follow-up, et cetera, that needs to happen after this, we definitely want to make sure we connect with you and get any and all of those questions answered. So again, thank you all for joining. We're over time, so we'll let you go. But thanks so much for joining, and we'll talk to you down the road.